You're listening to Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC podcast. We're glad you're here. Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you on Thursday, February 29th. And in honor of the leap year, we've got tons to jump into. We'll cover the final rumblings of how the Open Cup will unfold and what that means for the club, updates on the different broadcast details announced earlier this week, and some very special season ticket member news. We've got updates about the recent performances in Bermuda you haven't heard anywhere else, including talking about new trialists and some key stars who have gone missing in action. With just 15 days to go before our first official kickoff, is this team ready? Joining me to discuss that and so much more is co-host Jason Carey. Jason, how's it going, my friend?
Doing pretty good, buddy. So today's the 29th. It's a leap year. We're salaried employees. Do we get some sort of compensation for this? Should we have called out from work today? Because we're not getting paid for that extra day this year, are we?
You know, sometimes you come in with such great jokes, and other times you come in with, existential crisis moments. I don't know. I do not have an answer for that.
Yeah, midway through the day, I was like, wait, should I not be working very hard today?
So, the closest thing I can parallel that to is when I was much younger. Do you remember when we used to try to go to bars it was like the spring forward, the fall back? And do you remember on the fallback ones, we would go and it'd be 2 a.m.
Yeah, you get an extra hour of drinking.
Right. And or it would be 12 a.m., right? Excuse me. And then the bar would be closing down. You're like, nope, I've got another hour according to this. And no bartender ever wanted to hear it. Like, they just were like, we put in 8 hours or, we're done dealing with you guys. Get the heck out of this bar. This is taken that problem and upgraded it to a true adult situation. And I don't think I like that that's the way you started tonight's podcast.
And, just dropping random thoughts.
Listeners, let us know, do we deserve to get paid? Because it's a really good point. Any salaried person, any salaried person. Should leap year just be a universal strike day for the rest of space and time?
I'm down.
Well, of course. But hey, listen, we have a ton to go over today. Lots of new news. Sometimes we usually are just covering what's already kind of happened or what is in the process of happening. But I think that listeners are going to really enjoy today's episode because there's a lot of stuff that nobody has heard, and we've been holding on to it all week so that we could break it as exclusives versus teasing it on, the various social media channels or just confirming it and kind of getting things out. So I'm super excited about tonight.
Yeah, let's get right into it, buddy.
So the best way to start is that the gear, all of the RIFC kits that we promised 2 weeks ago that were supposed to be launching on the 16th.
Wait, they didn't get lost in the ocean again, did they?
No. So they didn't, or at least maybe that's the reason they were delayed and they had to make new ones. I don't know. But we reached out to the distributor and just called as if we were disgruntled customers that hadn't got our orders yet, which is kind of a true statement, and said, hey, listen, you sent an email. You said the kits would be launching on the 16th. Where's my stuff? And they said, hey, we really apologize. They've actually been waiting for the Rhode Island kits to come from Capelli. So this wasn't a distributor issue. This wasn't a Rhode Island FC issue. This was a Capelli situation. And Capelli has been late on getting those kits to the consumers. So the distributor does intend to have them over the next 5 days, and they will start shipping those out by no later than March 8th. So they have made commitments and promises that fans will have their road kits in hand before the March 16th game. Obviously, that's not great because if that's March 16th, it's that's been 30 days since the original commitment. But the most important part is if some fans were only buying the road kit and not the energy kit, they'll have something important to wear on the inaugural match. The one thing I wanted to say, and I said this to the club and I've said it to a couple of the people in the Discord, New Mexico United, our first opponents, just launched their yellow kit with this teal sash, and they've got a papyrus font. They're really embracing 1995 as a year. If the yellow kit is the thing that they're going to be wearing for their match, and we'll be wearing the Bay Blue kit, then is that something where fans should be trying to intentionally blue out the stadium for the day? I know a lot of clubs, especially when it's their rivals, they make sure they don't wear, if there's any kind of color coordination that day that could be misconstrued, or if they want to make sure that they show up in the primary color of their club. That's a thing. Is that something that we need to worry about here with Rhode Island FC and the fans? Like, should they be intentionally wearing the energy kit even if they love the road kit more?
I think maybe in this specific circumstance, because the team we're playing against, our away kit colors line up with theirs, probably should stick to the blue. I think in any other kind of circumstance, like, it doesn't really matter. We're still wearing an RAFC kit.
I mean, I know that we don't have enough influence to make that kind of change across all of the fans. It's just one of those exercises where you think, like, do you want to try to make sure you look the part of representing the way that the players look on the field? So whether you wear the road or energy, unless the club comes out and makes a request of it, we're never going to push an agenda here. I still think the road kit is the better of the two. And in fact, we dunked on that guy on social media today who rated the road kit like it was a Dave Portnoy pizza slice. And so I said, this rating is like just garbage. Just throw it away. So do whatever you want. But in the gear, the reason we even brought up the gear is we also found out in the same vein that there is more gear coming down the way. Rhode Island FC's got to make their money, right? Like, that's why you start a soccer club. You sell the merch. You don't win titles. You just sell the merch. You can win a title along the way if you want. But there's some new gear coming. And I asked, like, is this going to be more winter gear? Is this like gear that you have to make and have ready for the spring? And the only answer I got back was, we made something that you demanded on the podcast, that you requested.
Nice.
So we started working through, like, what could that be? I figured it out.
What is it?
We got dog bandanas on the way. We did it.
Nice.
So we took care of the human children, and now dog children are now also covered. So as soon as those dog bandanas show up, I'm buying like 5. I only have 1 dog. I'm buying like 5.
Well, I got 3, so there we go. 3 more sold.
Perfect.
Before we move on from the merch, though, I did have an interesting kind of thought here. Because this is our inaugural season, this will be the first year where you guarantee that everyone will be wearing a kit that is either is like in play this year. Whereas as a team has been around for a while, you start to see like, oh, that guy's got a kit from like 10 years ago, or that's the away kit from like 5 seasons ago that everyone liked. And you know what I mean? Like, you see a wide variety of different jerseys throughout the years. This is our first year. We only have that home and away kit. So that's, outside of just a t-shirt or like hoodie that has RFC on it, those are the only 2 options you got right now.
One of my favorite things that podcasters and the media does when enough years have gone by is they start rating the best of series and kits. Like, over the last 5 years, assume there's at least the home and the away, and then maybe a third alternate community kit kind of thing. Which ones take the top 5 out of the last 5 years, right? I cannot wait to be sitting here 4 years from now and doing that, and hoping that the road kit still is at least in the top 2. I also am curious, though, and this is something we'll have to play back the tape and like set a reminder for years to come. What is the name that you would see most likely on the back of the kit who is not successful in their tour or time with Rhode Island FC? And then you see that name later, you're like, oh, Frank Lampard for the New York City FC? Like, come on, like, what a waste of time, right? Who's going to be that name that someone has that's like, ooh, that was a moment in time I'd rather just continue to not remember happened?
Yeah, that'll be funny to see how that pans out, that one, just to wait and see. We haven't got to the season yet. I mean, we're getting pretty close, though. Yeah.
That's the jersey you'll see in 4 years. It's like, that's one of the crazies. That's one of the diehards that, knows what punishment
This guy's got a few screws loose.
All right, so let's jump into this because, like I said, we have a ton to go over today. We got to get through this Open Cup stuff because more news has finally been confirmed. And as a result, we just want to kind of get this out there, put our final thoughts on it, wrap a bow on it, and then just move on with life. So MLS has confirmed their participation in the event. They are going to put together 8 teams, which we'd already kind of talked about from an earlier leak, but we didn't know which teams those would be. We had speculated, would they be bottom of the table? Would they be something else? So it looks like what MLS decided, according to them, because there's been arguments that clubs begged to participate, and I don't know how you beg to a single entity. And
I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah, it's all showmanship. It's like, oh, we tried to listen to the fans. We tried to accommodate them. But they chose instead the clubs that were in the middle of the pack, which were the ones that had not earned a CONCACAF berth, but were not bottom either. So that's LAFC, Seattle, Atlanta, RSL, Dallas, Sporting Kansas City, San Jose, and then Houston is going back to defend their championship run. So you would ask that last week about like, would they come back? It's absolutely what the case is here. Now, as I kind of thought about this and unpacked it in the future, and I heard one of these pieces on another podcast, and so I just don't remember which one, I still think that the opportunity here is if MLS keeps it to 8 teams in the future, if one of them does win the Open Cup, they of course can take one of those spots. But I think it would be better if they just did a mock relegation system where the bottom 8 or bottom 4 aside have to participate in the Open Cup the next season as a form of this schedule congestion punishment. Because like there has to be a consequence for doing poorly. Guess what that consequence is? You have to go and fund another club showing up at your stadium and playing a game that you don't care about, or you're that bad of a squad that this is the only thing you could win. So it's like a wooden spoon of tournament participations, if you will.
The one thing I would say about that is I think that USL clubs would maybe take that personally as a like, oh, you're not sending your best, right? It's just, here's the teams that weren't very good last year. It does from a schedule perspective make sense though, in terms of those clubs are not going to be participating in other various tournaments that MLS has made up throughout the year. But yeah, I just don't think that USL clubs would, maybe from the perspective of like, hey, it gives us a better chance to win this tournament. But at the same time, these guys are professionals and they have that competitive spirit. They don't want to play beat your B team and just like brag about it. They want to beat the best that MLS has to offer.
We don't know yet if CONCACAF will still approve with this new format that they will offer one of the spots, right? So we will find that out at a later date. Someone said in a kind of post-mortem or if the eventual death of the Open Cup were to happen, a silver lining would be technically by population and by attendance, USL is one of the top 5 soccer leagues in North America. And as a result of that, by default, through the bylaws, they would then technically deserve, even though they're Division 2, they would deserve one of the way CONCACAF distributes a champion spot.
Mm-hmm.
But it would take the Open Cup, the way the amount of current champions seeds go to American-based teams, it would take the demise of the Open Cup to even free that up. So some are saying, hey, like, if the Open Cup went away, the USL could then host an internal version of the Open Cup across all of the different sides and create their own system, and then they could still distribute one championship berth each season. But I don't think USL wants that either, for that to come off of the demise of something as important as the Open Cup. So we'll see what happens. But we do need to find out if CONCACAF will still approve that with this system. But then real quick, just to close out the other side of it. So we did also say that MLS Next Pro did weasel their way in to the Open Cup. The only difference here is that they're starting in the first round. So I'm not going to say the 2 after each one because that just gets a little redundant, but these are all of the 2 sides for MLS Next Pro. So you've got NYCFC, you've got Red Bulls New York, Austin FC, Chicago Fire, Colorado Rapids, LA Galaxy, Minnesota United, Portland Timbers, and then Crown Legacy FC, which is Nate's old club. So that's the clubs that will be there. Did you notice a name that we didn't mention in any way, shape, or form?
The Revs too.
Yeah,
the
Revs
version of the other team that I don't care about.
Yeah, so I mean, we knew that the Revs with the CONCACAF berth were not going to be in, but the Revs 2 not participating, that was a bit interesting.
That is interesting. Do we have any speculation or any insider knowledge as why something like that would happen?
I don't know why these clubs were picked. I don't know. And, again, the Chicago Fire 2 were accepted in, but it was Chicago Fire who publicly earlier today said that they begged MLS to let their main team participate. So I don't know what that means then, because if they got one of them in, like, they wanted both. Like, I don't understand that.
You know what's funny? In that regard, I honestly would believe that Chicago Fire would want to, because it always seems like they're that club in MLS that gets dunked on a lot and that doesn't really do a lot.
1998 was so long ago. So long. Mike McGee and his big day out. Like, it was just a long, long time ago.
They should change their name to like Windy City FC.
I feel like we have had this conversation.
I'm pretty sure you came. I don't know if you came up with that. Or
it was
stole
Windy
from someone
City,
else.
and then the year it was created. It's like Windy City, like 1836, to go like that kind of German style.
That would be so cool.
Yeah. MLS, you can pay me later for it.
Some of these names are just a little too generic for me.
So,
anyways,
that's what we do know. What we don't know, like we mentioned, is the CONCACAF piece. And as of this recording, no one could confirm if that revenue share thing was still going on. What's important here is that with these MLS clubs being announced, there's no senior club that's in our immediate region. So that tells me that we're not at risk of having to probably in the first or earliest stages be lined up against one of them. So even if revenue share does become a topic, it's not going to impact the club. But then in the MLS Next Pro space, if some of these clubs do advance, there's a likelihood we could see one of the New York teams or Crown Legacy. They're not super close, but they would be kind of the next closest because they're one of the few left on the East Coast side of things. So that's how that could shape out if we make some sort of a deep run and these Next Pro teams make a deep run. But my money is still on Hartford. I talked to the club earlier. They haven't committed to anything yet on whether they would host an Open Cup game, but they did remind me that they are still renters in a foreign space, which makes any of those kinds of things difficult. So I think that if there is a game to be held at Bryant, it's going to have to be a really special game or a really important game. And it's like, if you're going to make a deep push, do you wait to reserve the home field advantage deeper in to see what the team could do? Or do you take the immediacy, especially as a new club? Like, I think you wait till you're in the final or the close to the end of the tournament knockout rounds before you try that.
Yeah, I would rather take my chances on the road earlier on. And then when it really matters towards the end, get some of those home berths. With all that's gone down with the Open Cup and the way that MLS has been kind of actively antagonistic towards the tournament, do you think as like USL fans, we need to kind of maybe rally behind USL as a whole? Meaning that, like, say RFC doesn't make it too far, should we be rooting for any USL team to win it, even if it's like Hartford?
Don't say it. Oh, you said it.
You know what I mean? Like if somehow they stumbled their way into a final, and it was like Hartford versus, I don't know, San Jose.
Yeah. 100%. Like, I hate that you're making me say this out loud, but yes, it is USL. It is RAFC first, USL second, and then everything else. And in all honesty, before I was even a fan of Rhode Island FC, I think we had the same mentality back in the day with MLS when our team got knocked out. Who was the darling? Who was the underdog in the league? And that's the team I want to rally behind. That's the magic of the Open Cup, right? Like that's the storyline you want to see unfold. So absolutely, even if it's that team that's less than the best in the West, I would support them because I want to see the USL advance. I want to see them knock MLS off a pedestal, and I would then challenge our club to make sure in the following season we show up and make sure that we take that title for ourselves, because that's where suddenly the Open Cup can have more meaning. But to kind of double down on that, the other thing that we have to make sure we do, and this goes out to all the listeners and all the fans, is we have to show up for these games, whether it's at the stadiums in attendance if we can, it's in the TV ratings, watching them, however they show up in the streams, it's getting on social media and being active, it's having watch parties, it's all of that stuff that tells the USSF to pay attention, because right now there's a fight for the soul of the Open Cup. And I guarantee you that with this dropped number of teams, MLS will be watching and saying, this doesn't make us money. And now look, we pulled 2/3 of our clubs out, and now the ratings are even less, right? So this is a year. So if fans of any league, not just USL, want to see the Open Cup, you have to participate. You have to practice. You have to preach you have to practice what you preach. And you have to show up for these things. And that means maybe it's not just Rhode Island FC games. That means like find the Sharktopus FCs of the world, and where you can watch them and where it makes sense, go and participate in that. Go have fun and support soccer in this country, because otherwise we're at risk of losing something very special.
Preaching to the choir. We really need to make sure that we as fans do our best to I'd say at minimum watch the game. I know that sometimes a lot of these games are midweek. Maybe if you can't make it to the game, make sure you turn in, because they'll get those rating numbers.
Yeah, go watch a rebroadcast on YouTube or wherever they go. Right, like they'll pay attention to the numbers. Speaking of broadcasts, that's a perfect segue. We have all of our broadcasts are anchored in. We've got that all figured out finally.
Anchored in.
Yeah, you saw what I
Nice.
did there. ESPN Plus, that's the second vendor. We kind of alluded to it. We had heard some rumblings internally in the league and amongst other media groups that follow the league. And so we can confirm that ESPN Plus is the additional vendor. So let's just unpack this. I mean, a lot of people already know this, so let's just go over the pros and the cons, so to speak. One, the pros. Most people already have ESPN. You had already joked about that on the last episode. And whether they have it for sports or they have it as part of that Hulu Disney bundle, a lot of people already have that. Likewise with CBS / Paramount Plus / Golazo, a lot of people already have that one. I actually pulled up a streaming, like by the numbers of subscriptions, and Paramount's in the top 5. So it's not like it's Peacock or Tubi or Fubo or whatever other ones are out there. So a lot of people probably already have these too. Now, if you don't, it's still not a bad deal. $5.99 for Paramount / CBS. And then the unbundled ESPN version is $10.99. So to watch every game you want at about $16 a month, I can think of worse deals out there or poorer ways I've spent money. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. And then if you're not a cable cutter and you still have, cable, Nesson's still readily available to you in your current package. So you're getting it through the Nesson options, at least where they are covering the games. We still don't know what Nesson will be covering because this news is still new to the week. So I anticipate we'll have more information about Nesson's offerings starting next week. But whether it's Nesson or Nesson Plus, you can still have it. I think for us, and I think for a majority of people, they're going to probably participate through the CBS and ESPN Plus part of it. But that's just really exciting to know. In terms of the cons, though, it's not a great look that we're trying to be this central powerhouse and we still need multiple platforms to get this across. I don't really appreciate that in the sense of convenience, but the thing that I have not heard anyone talk about, so this is kind of my hot take, is where this really can kind of dilute the talent in the league is different vendors equals different broadcast partners, which means different personalities, different anchors. And, one of the most important things I think to grow this sport is making sure that the talent either at the stadium or on the broadcast is something that you can kind of fall in love with alongside the club. So you get that personality, you get that sports broadcaster who kind of becomes that name brand thing in your home. And when you have multiple companies like this, the investment in it is going to either conflict or you're going to just kind of see it as an assignment versus a dedication. And that can mean the world of difference on how you enjoy soccer, especially from a watch party perspective when the games are away. So that's one thing I'm not really so excited about because, and I don't know ESPN's, I never really paid attention yet on what that looks like. I hope that there's some investment in a New England approach where it's for the community by the community, but we don't know that yet. But that's kind of an unintended consequence of having multiple partners that I haven't heard anyone talk about yet.
For RFC specifically, I just wonder too if this is something that over the years will kind of maybe organically happen. It's going to be our first season, so maybe if enough people kind of clamor for a specific New Rhode Islander or New Englander to be the voice of RAFC, maybe that's something we'll see.
It would just be frustrating to know that we could be in, again, the year 5 joke. We're doing this. We're a voice. We're a consistent voice. But every week, it's just the run-of-the-mill broadcaster who got recruited up because it was a slot in a schedule and this person had availability. That is what I want to make sure that the club and the league avoid. So it will only learn through time, but I know other sports at this stage, especially with broadcasting packages, they have to deal with that if they don't have the local anchored anchor. Yeah, I did it twice there. But so it's just a watch out for me. But then combining that too with the national TV announcement. So on top of ESPN Plus being announced, once they knew that, the club and the league then put out all of the games that would be displayed on national levels. And there was a lot of complaints online all over the spectrum of certain teams getting as many as 5 games, certain teams getting 0 broadcast games when it comes to the national stage. And it was just kind of a very inconsistent tone from fans of the league. Rhode Island FC is only getting 1 game on national broadcast coverage, and that's against the Legion. It is an away game at Birmingham on Wednesday, July 17th at 8 p.m. And let me tell fans right now why none of that matters. 1, is people were like, well, why didn't they cover the Derby? We even said it's a shame that they didn't cover the Derby, because I feel like that is going to be one of the games that's the one that could set as an example for the league of like what good looks like. But having said that, it's not like a game changer that fans or randoms watching at the national stage who just happen to tune into soccer, that they don't see that. Like, we'll still have that game available on ESPN Plus, or well, it will be ESPN Plus on that one. So that's not like the end of the world. But the other thing that people kind of didn't really see in the pattern is most of these games are on Wednesdays and Fridays, because that's where these broadcast opportunities are made available. If the games are Wednesday and Friday, and we don't have that many because we don't play a lot because of the contract requirements with Bryant this year, it's not a big deal. And then also, we play at Bryant. I'm pretty sure both the club and the league don't want to really showcase to the entire country's population a college environment. Bryant is great. I'm not throwing any shade their way, but it's not what we've promised the world with Tidewater. So I imagine they want to save that shiny new thing, that fantastic experience for next year when it counts. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that makes sense 100%. I think this will be the first year, we'll jump into the pool, and then next year when we have shiny Tidewater, we'll be like, yo, check us out. So I've been looking a little bit more into the CBS deal, and I noticed that they're saying the games will be streamed on Golasso Network, and you can just get that through Pluto TV, which is free, or you can also just go onto the internet to watch it.
Are you already giving listeners the life hacks to have an even cheaper cost?
So yeah, I don't, I would maybe look into this a little more.
Tell me you pirate soccer streams without telling me you pirate soccer streams.
These aren't pirate. This is their legitimate deal. So there's obviously the games that are being televised on national CBS. So as long as you have an antenna, right? That doesn't, besides the cost of the antenna, that's not a streaming service. And then Golasso Network, from what I can see here, is just a free channel. So you might still need the ESPN Plus deal, but Paramount, I would think, is maybe not a necessity. There is a fairly long post on USL Pro Reddit, if you guys want to check that out. It was posted a few days ago before. I think that might have been before the ESPN deal. So I don't know if that changes things, but you might not need to actually sign up for Paramount Plus. Okay. Unless, of course, you want to watch like Star Trek or something.
Well, we'll find out. Right now, we at least start with what we know, and then we'll do the science, and we'll experiment this season to see if that's actually a cheaper cost. So speaking of gifts to the fans, even though you just dropped freebies, let's drop another freebie to season ticket members.
So there's an event here, like you said, for season ticket members. RFC's playing the Revs 2 this weekend, which, we can't see. However, as a special thank you, season ticket members have been invited to attend the final preseason friendly, which is going to be against Providence College on March 8th at 7:30 p.m. at Burns Stadium.
This is huge. Like the club has been hinting that they wanted to make this open, especially after so many games have been closed door or at least not available to the public. This is an incredible gesture that they're taking on, especially with the amount of work that they have just a week later to get the stadium ready for the final, the final hoorah. I think this just speaks of a front office that's in tune with what the fans want.
Like we always say, they keep making the right decisions. So gates are going to open at 6:30. To claim your tickets, you need to log into your RAFC account on SeatGeek and claim the tickets in the offers tab. If you have a parking pass pre-purchased, you can also claim that. Otherwise, you will have to request one for those that didn't prepay.
Now, real fast, this is, again, a season ticket member event. This was designed as a special thing for them, that if you do not yet have season tickets, this is the perfect example of why you want to sign up and make sure that you go and get that. They're still available. So if you'd like to come out to a free game, because that's what this is, like they're not charging you for it, that's exactly what you can come out and do. So just keep that in mind. I want to make sure that we don't gloss that over and people think, oh, I can just show up at Bryant. You will have to have a ticket. You do have to be a season ticket member to get that ticket, or you have to have a relationship with Defiant 1636. And those people already know how to get their tickets with the supporters group, so we're not even going to broadcast that. But you need to be a season ticket member to come to this.
Yep. and you're going to have until 10 a.m. on March 5th to claim your ticket. Concessions will be available. I don't know if this will be the full extent of what we're going to get during the season. There will be no alcohol, however. Tailgate, you should be able to.
So we've confirmed. So I know
Confirmed?
we're working with old knowledge now. Yeah,
Okay.
There will be tailgating. We do not know what time you can tailgate.
Yeah, because this is a active open university, so I imagine we can't show up too early. 5:30, an hour before, might be a safe bet. If we get any other information, we will communicate that to you through the socials.
Yeah. So tailgating, you bring your food there then if you want. Just, be responsible with your tailgating, of course. And if we get any other information, we'll post it in social media.
We're getting a trial run before the season starts and get to see how the boys play out there.
Do you like, this is the nerd in me when it comes to operations and whatnot. Do you think, what's the thing that they're going to have an aha moment about as they trial this with the fans coming in, the logistics, the supporter group, and how they have to be security marched in and out? Like, what do you think is going to be we didn't catch this in the design?
That'll be a good question. I imagine, like most places when they do openings, they kind of underestimate the amount of time, like things, take to kind of go through, like the amount of time it'll take to get everyone through the lines for concessions, so on and so forth, that maybe they've underestimated a few things and then kind of need to go back and reassess and reevaluate. Do they need to give themselves more time to get this thing done? Do we need to hire another person or two? Those kind of things.
So let's get into these Bermuda results, yeah?
Yeah. So
real fast before you go.
Yeah, what's
I
up?
was listening back because I always do like a how can I do things better on each podcast, give like technical notes. I predicted as a joke at the time that there would be a 7-1 scoreline against one of the Bermuda teams as a joke.
You did get the amount of goals scored correct.
So thank you. That's exactly where I was going to go. And then also in the rule of Price is Right rules, did I win something? Like, is that I bet $1, so I won the showcase? Like, I need to know.
Come on down, Matt, and claim your prize.
Does this get me anything, or is it all or nothing?
Here's a brand new dishwasher.
I'll take it.
It's connected to the cloud. It'll send you alerts. Be like, hey, you didn't empty me last
And then
night.
it'll upcharge me for the amount of water I use at prime water times, like Wendy's charging for their fast food. But no,
it doesn't work when the internet's down.
Do I get anything for a 7-1 prediction, even though it was 8-0? Is it all or nothing? I just want to know.
The gold stars that I ordered, they're not here yet.
Dang it. Okay.
Sorry, they're delayed.
All right, go for it.
So the amount of goals scored was correct, but it was 8 goals scored for us, for RAFC. So put on a show there. 2 from Fuson, 2 from Kazera, 2 from Brito, and then Sadie and Ibarra.
But like, let's get honest though too. When I saw that scoreline, I immediately thought, oh man, we played like the U16 team. And I mean no disrespect to Bermuda, because they are graciously, or they have graciously hosted the team. The team's already back now. But they permitted us to come in. They paused the Bermuda Premier Division so that their players could come together and play this squad. These were not in any way, shape, or form pushovers, right? Like this was it was a mixed bunch, but it was a solid professional core of players.
So yeah, this was a mix of national team players, Bermuda Premier Division players, and there's actually a USL Championship player in their roster as well. So it's not like we were playing some amateurs. But I will say, just to keep this result a little more grounded, they are rated like 169th in FIFA, like global rankings, and they're like 22nd in CONCACAF. So I would also take a grain of salt from this result, and we don't want people going into the league thinking, oh, we're going to start beating teams 8-0. That's not going to happen. This was also a friendly preseason. Generally, you don't go into tackles as hard. You're not, it's more of a, like we've mentioned before, the idea is to get out there to really like start to feel your team and know where your guys are going to be, like if they've got your back, where you need to cover, where the passing lanes are, to really gel with the guys.
Right. And I think that it's important that we also say, Kano is still experimenting too. So even if there was success in the immediate product that was on the field, that doesn't mean that that's what he'll be playing when it comes time for USL matches. So let's jump into this. So we have had the privilege of knowing not just the scoreline, but we've also known the formation and the players that started, which is something we have not yet had in any of the matches. So this was kind of our first, peek behind the curtain, if you will, on seeing kind of where coach's mindset was. So coach did set up or deploy in a 4-3-3, which he has alluded to for a very long time that is a formation that he was trying to influence as the squad has been built. So we had, and I also want to preference, we got this information from the Royal Gazette, which is the equivalent of like the New York Times, LA Times of Bermuda. Really appreciate them reaching out and sharing this information. Having said that, he gave me the players, but he gave me the formation, but he didn't give me who was in each assignment. So we are taking some liberties with this to understand where we think these people would have lined up based on what we know about the squad themselves. So in this 4-3-3, we had Koke Vegas manning the net. And then we had, from right to left, we had Steven Turnbull at right back, Grant Stoneman and Karifa Yao in the center. And then we had Jojea Quizera holding down the left back line. And then in the midfield, we had Clay Holstead on the right, Mark Ibarra in the middle, and Joe Brito. I think you could switch Mark and Joe depending on what you saw. And then in the front three, we had Prince Sadie, which we know is very much a right-sided winger. Kevin Vang then, which this is the interesting one, Kevin Vang was holding down the left, and we believe Noah Fuson was the lone striker, where, again, we've seen him be a winger, but we also have seen him be orientated as a striker, as a position of need when it's been demanded. There's some obvious things I think we need to talk about, and we can maybe save that towards the back half of this conversation. But as a 4-3-3 goes, that back line is one of the back lines we've discussed as one of the contenders as the starting lineup. Like, there's a couple alternates you could go there. How do you feel about this formation?
I'm a big fan of the 4-3-3, and I think this is pretty close to some of the formations that we were kind of coming up with. Maybe one or two changes here that we'll maybe see depending on how the season pans out, because this is still preseason.
Listen, there's a bunch of questions that people probably have in their mind if this was the starting 11, and we are going to get to that, but I think it's important we continue on, and then we'll discuss the overall tactics, the overall formation selection, and some of the players that are on these rosters and are not. So before we get into that, I think we should just get through the other game as well, and then we'll kind of unpack the entire thing.
We did play a second friendly against them. Game 2 ended 5-1. At halftime was 2-1. So not as much of a thrashing. It was a pretty big different lineup. We have goals from Dikwa, Anking, Blaze Hall.
What a great name.
That is a pretty awesome
Blaze name. Hall. Oh, I love it. I mean, that was the Bermudian that scored. That's not a player for Rhode Island. See, he got the one for Bermuda, but still, what a cool name.
Yeah, and then we have Fuson bagging another brace, and then Sadie grabbing another goal as well.
Right. So in this one for game number 2, again, this time we got the names. We didn't get a formation. So there's a little bit of speculation here. Doing the research, you're about to hear a lot of new names because these are trialists that the club brought along on the journey. So not knowing where their natural position is and just kind of looking at the history of these individuals, we kind of determined that this was either a more standard 4-4-2 or some sort of variation of a 3-5-2. My gut is telling me that it was a 4-4-2, but I could easily see that 3-5-2 piece, or maybe even a 3-4-1-2, which doesn't help because now I've listed 4 different formations in the course of 5 seconds. But let's explain the players, and then maybe this will make more sense. So in this game, we had Jackson Lee manning the net, and then we had new trialist Josh Morgan on the right back side. Grant Stoneman returned for a second appearance in Bermuda as a center back. And this time he was partnered with Kofi Tumase, who is the other center back that / defender that we've recently picked up. And then we had newcomer Alex Sternberg, which if I've butchered your name, I apologize. Charles Auguste in the midfield, along with Amos Shapiro-Thompson, Isaac Anking, and Walter Varela. These are all names that because they're trialists and the club didn't even know we knew them. It's like we didn't get pronunciation sheets.
Varela, I think it is a Portuguese name.
But don't you have to have 2 L's? Wouldn't it be Varela then?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure there was a
My
guy
my
who
level
played for
2
Portugal.
my level 2 Duolingo tells me 2 L's is the E sound.
But remember, Portuguese is different from Spanish. Like they're like the
That
same.
was the most obvious statement. I could have said that to anyone.
Okay.
That's not fair to me. You've insulted my level 2 Duolingo. How dare you?
Level 2.
What was it?
Walter Varela.
Okay, Walter Varela. So he was on the right side of that midfield. And so that's why we think it was a 4-4-2. And then up front was a combination of Prince Sadie and Kevin Vang again. So so that tells me that there's a lot of interesting things here to unpack about this formation. One, heavily on trialists, and this was not where trialists played only 45 minutes of the match. This was trialists getting 70 minutes in the game. So this was literally their trial to see if they'll secure contracts by their performance for coach to make a determination, because he did not need to bring players at this level in terms of volume to a place like Bermuda unless he was serious about signing them. So they seem to have made a good showing for themselves, especially with On King scoring one of the goals in the game. Now, talking about these trialists, we need to unpack this a little bit more because there's so much conversation to have here. All of these players on paper, they're incredible signings for us if we wanted to pursue this. So we'll start with Isaac Onking. He's a midfielder. He's from Providence. He's a native, and he played with the New England Revolution. And when I say played with the Revolution, I mean he was a homegrown signing who literally has minutes on the senior squad playing against the likes of NYCFC, LAFC, Atlanta, and Orlando. He doesn't have a ton of minutes. He had some injuries, which someone said they said how one of the injuries happened, and I'm not going to say it because I can't confirm that. But he had some injuries that then saw him get loaned down to the Revs 2, and then eventually he found himself on the Columbus Crew 2, which, surprise, he's playing on the same squad as Clay Holstead and Noah Fuson. So there's already a linkage there, and if he's another center midfielder, like the likes of Fuson, Holstead, and Onking showing up into this trifecta, it's poetry being written in front of our very eyes.
Yeah, and they have such a good amount of talent over there in Columbus and Columbus Crew too. So it's not surprising to see us trying to maybe poach some more from them.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of the front runners. If we could only sign 2 of these 4, I think he's one of the 2. And I'm not saying that we're only looking at 2, but I'm just saying if we had to be selective, he's definitely a front runner in my mind. But then if you think that pedigree is that's the tippity top, we go even better on kind of accomplishments with Charles Auguste. He's another midfielder who was signed for the Houston Dynamo, again, the senior team, where he played in the Open Cup match against Sporting Kansas City before being loaned down for the rest of the season to Dynamo 2. And I started thinking about that. I was like, oh, wait, the Dynamo won the Open Cup. So this guy, Charles Auguste, he's an Open Cup champion. He's got a ring. Or I don't know if they give rings for the Open Cup, but he's got a trophy that he can say he's won, which of these people, that makes him the most professional champion of this group right now.
Yeah, I would hope he gets some sort of winner's credits. Sometimes competitions, though, do have a certain number of appearance kind of clause.
No,
So
yeah,
I'm just not sure how that works.
It's funny. I got too deep into the Open Cup bylaws when I started getting into trying to understand more about it, and it's really more about cup tie than it is anything else. You can't change squads, you can't have development people move up mid tournament. So I think he would get credit, and if the cup doesn't openly acknowledge it, I'm acknowledging he's an Open Cup champion. So
I'll go edit his Wikipedia page.
Funny, I don't think he had a Wikipedia page. Most of the information I got was off of their college seasons and transfer market, to be honest. And then third on the list is Alex Sternberg, which again, I don't know if I'm getting that right, but he played for St. Louis University. He played for Michigan State, and he's also a product of the Revs Academy. So he's a local in that regard too. He's got connections with coach. He's got connections with the players. Now, the interesting thing about him is he has a social media channel right now, and he's got 40,000 followers. And his whole entire journey, he's documenting his journey to get a professional soccer contract. So the reason I found out about a majority of these players is because Alex has been doing interviews with players in Bermuda and in his trialist opportunities. And that's how I found all this stuff out, because he's been like, hey, like, how did you get here? Tell me more. Like, what are you trying to get out of this? It's a really powerful journey. He's been nothing but positive in his approach. And I mean, the kid's got a lot of heart. I have to give him credit for that. So if he doesn't end up becoming a successful soccer player, he's got an incredible social media influencing path ahead and journey ahead of him. But, you know, he showed up. He seems like he has a lot of good skills. Again, he's a defensive minded midfielder / defender. So it's one of those kind of like places where, do we need more depth? It could be. So, but then I want to get to the one that I think is the most likely that is someone we pick up, and that is Josh Morgan. He was most recently a right back playing with UConn. Had a ton of minutes in 2023 playing against the very same squads like Providence College, which we'll be playing in with our last friendly. But the guy's just a beast. I watched his highlight reel, and we joked a couple weeks ago about like defenders never get really good highlight reels. This guy can take the ball away from you, pickpocket your wallet, and then like just move on, and suddenly you're like homeless because he's kicked you out of your house at the same time. Like, that's how good he is at taking everything away from you. And I was there for it. He seems like he's got the right defensive posture. He seems like he's got really good lane control and like defensive mindsets. And he wasn't afraid to take a player on defensively instead of waiting for the player to come to him. I thought he showed up really well. And we've been talking that right back is one of the few places where we have not seen a dedicated person in depth for that role.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just the fact alone that he's a right back and he made it to this stage, I think we would definitely be considering him, just to make sure that, you know, Steven has some backup.
Agreed. So listen, in final impressions for this, you know, the coach is still obviously at least aloof enough to say that he hasn't finalized a formation. You know, he's comfortable changing things up as needed. So he's not one of those rigid coaches that's like, I will only ever play this and this is all I can do. So that was exciting to see him experiment with these two games. But, you know, if we're being honest, the first squad, or at least as much of it as we saw in the game, they definitely were playing a 4-3-3. So I think we can kind of lock that now in as an expectation, or at least one of the primary tools that coach intends to deploy. The other thing that we learned from the games from the Royal Gazette is that these starting 11s played the majority of the minutes. So these players were getting their fitness up. They were playing 70 minutes plus. This was not a 45-minute squad swap situation. These are the players that we can expect, at least again from game number one. You know, we talked about the players that started, but we missed out and omitted a lot of players that did not play. And we'll kind of unpack that in a second. But that was a surprise to me. And then Stoneman and Sadie also getting a lot of playing time. So call that out for what you want for now. But that's going to be something that I think we need to watch. But what I want to ask you, Jason, is who do we think the leading goal scorer so far in the preseason is? Like, we don't have every game's scorer, but like Fuson has been racking up the goals. And if he's got this many under his belt in preseason, again, this doesn't matter, right? Like the 8-0, the 5-1, these don't matter in terms of where it needs to count down the road. But you also can't deny that he's putting the ball in the back of the net. What does this mean for him in trying to earn a starting role?
Well, coach has said that it's going to be based upon merit and how well they're playing and so on and so forth. So I imagine that he is definitely putting his name out there. I wouldn't be surprised, though, too, with the amount of attacking talent that this team has, that we see some pretty good rotation up front, so we don't burn out any of the guys, you know?
If you can get 45 minutes out of Mark Doyle and then you bring Fuson in, you're just guaranteed to have success on the field, right? So like I don't disagree at all, but it's also hard to not say to Fuson, who I guarantee you probably was coming in to be depth, like, hey, we really need to maybe give this guy a serious consideration for a starting role. It's a great problem to have, but nevertheless, it is a problem that coach is going to have to figure out. But then the other thing I want to ask tonight is, we've now seen one USL Championship scrimmage, allegedly. We've seen one professional MLS senior squad. We've seen one MLS Next Pro. And now we've seen Coach Kano violate the Geneva Conventions in destroying his entire country of Bermuda. I guess I have to ask, is this the right level of talent in terms of frequency and scale? Like, are we getting a good sense of what the baseline of this club's talent is based on these matches so far? Again, knowing that everything has to come to fruition on the 16th, I guess I just want to understand, are we on the right track, or are we playing such randomness here that like it's hard to say this club is heading in the intended direction?
For all intents and purposes, it seems like we are doing very well preseason. Obviously, like I had mentioned before, don't expect us to score 8 goals all the time. But it does seem like this team is going to be very attacking minded and that this team has goals in it. How that pans out in a full season against a bunch of other USL championship teams remains to be seen. We've been talking throughout the week and looking at various, YouTubers, influencers, and people who are around the USL. And a lot of them are also rating RAFC pretty highly. They're expecting us to be somewhere in the playoff mix. I think that we're on the right track.
And listen, I have to ask that question because it's just one that if I don't want us to ever sound like we're homers for this club. I realize that we have not played at our level except for one time, and I wonder if that matters. Like I don't know if we're going to be shell shocked in the first 3 games as we adjust to that, or if these are good scenarios to test the mettle of this group. Like that I guess that will remain to be seen.
I also think that, and no dig against New Mexico, but like if the first game was against Sacramento Republic, that's one of those things where you think you're ready and you just get knocked out right away, right? I mean, they are no pushover, but we're also not playing, let's say, like the best team, one of the best teams in the league.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I just feel like it's bad juju to even say those things. So I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear that, because now you've painted a target on you that if something does not go right in our inaugural match, I can already hear the front office emailing us saying, like, you guys jinxed us.
Just,
we are going to win.
I mean, I think
we have to win every game. We're going to go undefeated.
All of them.
34-0.
No, but a lot of them, yes. You don't want to. It's like when you get promoted into the Premier League and you see your first game against like Manchester City or Liverpool, you're just like, well, write that one off. Right? Like it's you're obviously going to try, but it's just not a great way to start off the season.
That tracks. And listen, I think everyone in the squad, I think the technical staff, I think everyone in the front office, they've all been putting in 100% effort. So let's not take away from that they're punching up or punching down. It's just more of is this a good preparation for it? So only time will tell. Only the results on the first game day match will tell us if that's true or not. So I think we've held off long enough because we've said a bunch of stuff about who's been in the matches, but we've intentionally left out some that have not. And I think this is where the podcast is going to turn to the conspiracy tinfoil hats, and we're going to get a little dark here, but some of this we know is true, so we have to take this with a grain of salt at the same time. So for all the players we mentioned that were in the starting 11, there were some players that were intentionally omitted, and we need to talk about it. So first off and foremost, Gabriel Alves, he was not seen in any of the match lineups for Bermuda, and so we started looking into, like, well, was he not fit? Like, was he sick or something? And then we didn't see him in any of the photography for the club in the Bermuda session. So that tells me that he is not available. We don't know why he didn't travel. There could be some sort of mechanic that we're not aware of. Obviously, the club doesn't owe it to us to tell us anything like that. But we have some speculation that some of these names, they may not be here because maybe they needed to make room for the trialists. And maybe because these people were lock-on starters, that they said, hey, like, you don't need to come for any reason that we can't think of. But Gabriel Alves has not been present. And, we know that he's actually also not really sick. I said that earlier as maybe he was not feeling well for a day, but he's been practicing, and we've seen him in social media along with another teammate who also did not make the trip to Bermuda, which was Frank Nodarse. Now, Frank's is a little bit easier of a story for us to understand because while he has been training and doing his, physical work and his, whatever the coaching staff assigned him as drills and practices, We understand Nodarse's situation a little bit better. We didn't cover this when he was signed, but Frank Nodarse actually defected from Cuba during the 2018 CONCACAF U20 Championship. So when you're a person that has left your country under like asylum circumstances, my guess is that the way his ability to work and to be a part of America is that he can't leave the country because he doesn't have that citizenship that you would get as someone who's fled another country. So my guess is that Frank Nodarse couldn't go to Bermuda because maybe Cuba could like bring him back, or maybe he just doesn't have the correct paperwork to go do that. So my guess is it's something political along those lines.
So you're telling me he pulled in, was it Ozzy
Alonso?
Yeah.
Seattle
legend.
23. So when I found that out, I pulled up the numbers. 23 players in the last 4 years have defected from the Cuban national team into America or other countries to get away from it, and they have an insane stat of like 20,000 people a year don't ever come back. They run away from Cuba. So we're not gonna go there on that route, but that's our guess is why Frank couldn't be there. So that one makes sense, and that's a positive. Well, as much as you can make something like that positive. But the next two are where we get really, really kind of scared. So buckle up, put that tinfoil hat on. We haven't seen Connor McGlynn in anything since the last pictures in Florida and some of the hype reels that the team had with him coming back from Florida. And he's been really quiet on social media over the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, only posting some pictures about like recent family events and birthdays. And so when I see a player go dark like that, my mind goes to one of three things. It's either illness, it's he's just taking a like a detox from social media, or he's got some sort of injury. And, that's the thing that we don't know. Again, going back to the Gabriel Alves thing, like, is he, I think Connor is in contention for the captaincy of this team. That's a vibe that I've gotten since meeting him so many times. He was one of the first people we signed. He's just got a great attitude. That doesn't mean he'll get it, but like I would, if I got to vote as a member of media, I'd put his name in the ring or the name in the hat. But him not being there, but knowing that he's a lock-on starter, if this isn't a knock, did he give up his spot for that reason? But that doesn't gel with me, because he should be there getting the minutes if he's that important to the squad. So like, this is all speculation, and the club hasn't said anything. And let's get honest too, the club is never going to confirm these things because, one, they don't want to tell their opponents the condition and the health of their squads. That's something they're always going to... That's why they don't do injury reports till like an hour before. I think it drives fantasy footballers like crazy because they don't know who's going to show up.
Can't lock it in yet.
Yeah. So like the club's never... If the club chooses to confirm, we'll obviously report that as is. But like that's our speculation. Is the severity something we need to be concerned about? I don't know. Is it just something as a precaution? They said, hey, like, just take the week off. You've been doing great. Like, we don't know. And maybe it isn't even something related to soccer. Maybe he, like I don't know, maybe he sprained his foot stepping off of a curb. It can happen. It can happen.
It is an interesting thought, though, that you brought up with the, I don't know if we could say that they're locked on starters per se, but say that maybe the flight there, they only had X amount of tickets. And if they're bringing trialists and such, that maybe they did actually... Maybe coach did have to tell a few guys to stay home.
So I honestly think that's what it is, because the club does not have infinite resources, right? Like it may seem like it because they keep having to pay the expanded costs on the stadium construction, but they don't have an infinite money glitch that they can take advantage of. So
they didn't put that cheat code in, did they?
No, they did not. So that does resonate with me. Is like, if you've got a player that you know is good, maybe maybe all of our concerns about this quote unquote injury, maybe that's nothing.
Did Connor McGlynn do the episode of Cribs?
He did.
Maybe is he exploring some sort of other YouTube stardom or something?
Straight to acting. Yeah, we've lost him. Oh,
he's trying to revive the Cribs series.
The darkest timeline. Oh my gosh. Didn't you have a joke when we talked about this beforehand that like maybe he like tripped playing basketball in that sweet Cribs,
yeah. It was tied into the Cribs thing. Yeah, where he says he just kicks the ball, but I don't know. Maybe there was an accident in there.
So anyways, we don't know, and I don't want to get people freaked out, but that's just something that we need to consider. When we don't see a player and the club hasn't told us anything, our mind will always wander to dark places. So, and unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. So we've got one more that we need to kind of unload and walk through because as time has gone on, pieces of the puzzle have kind of presented themselves, and some of what we thought we knew doesn't line up, and that is JJ Williams. So it actually all came from the photos that we saw about the club being in Bermuda when we noticed he wasn't there. Once we saw the formations come in and we noticed he wasn't even in like the bench reserves, it kind of got us thinking, like, why wouldn't JJ Williams like finally, because remember, Chico just showed up in Bermuda. He's getting his first minutes with the squad there, and you would think you would want to start comparing and unlocking your synergies between your two front strikers as fast as possible. And not seeing him there, we said, like, how could that be a missed opportunity for the club? And then we went back and replayed the tape. We didn't catch this at the time, but we didn't see JJ Williams on the trip to Florida either, because we were busy interviewing the likes of Steven Turnbull and Coach Kano and a couple other players. So at the time, like, we weren't doing like the Home Alone Kevin head count to where like JJ Williams got left in an attic in a house in Chicago. Like, what happened, we don't know. And so we haven't asked the club yet, so this is all completely speculation. And again, I don't think they're going to tell us anything until they want to tell us something. But when you don't see JJ Williams in Florida, you don't see JJ Williams in Bermuda, he's not posting anything except for his hype reels, which is something we did see. So he did take the professional pictures for Media Day, but outside of that, we haven't seen him since the first actual Media Day where he did the interviews that we covered a couple of episodes back. I don't know what's going on.
So you say he's posting stuff, but that could be a like media manager or something, right?
No, on his personal account. So like
someone could have stolen his passwords. Maybe he's locked up. Maybe we need to save him.
So JJ Williams is being held hostage somewhere in Providence.
He's in someone's basement or something. He couldn't find his way out.
I mean, he's got a family, so I think we would have heard that on the news by now. I think his wife would have been like, "My husband has gone missing." The Green Galactus kidnapped him from Hartford. So
Dylan, how dare he?
So listen, jokes aside, though, I think we really got to make sure we get this right, because I don't want to scare people, but I want to level expectations. When you don't see a player for that long, and he shows up for the media stuff, but he's not showing up in any of the team events, I don't know what to make of that. My mind only goes to one of two things. Either, and this is where we get really dark, because the easy one is injury, and we can talk about that in a second. But the more I thought about this, Chico's signing was such a last-minute signing for the club that my belief is, and kind of what we've heard around the organization, is like you heard that Chico's discussion was 6 to 10 months in advance or something like that, right? And it's a no-brainer, and every club would want the golden boot to be on their team. I have a feeling that given that Chico was one of the last signings, because he was literally signed the day before Media Day, which we already had our like starting 15 there practicing, there could be something to it that getting Chico means that we had to make a sacrifice in positioning how many people we have, especially with the amount of, again, we have a lot of front.
Like maybe they, in terms of budget wise, are a little over, you think?
I don't think the club would be so irresponsible to spend too much money, but I think that they may have seen like we have too much money sitting on the bench. And maybe we need to try to sell this player. And when you're going to try to sell a player or trade a player, you have to think deliberately on like, well, what do I hurt this player? Like, it's an asset right now. Maybe there's already a discussion and he can't play until, like, again, we don't know anything except that he's not playing with the club right now. So
there's technically a third option as well too. It's rare, but occasionally you see if a player is in some sort of, say, legal issues or troubles, like clubs will kind of remove that player from the spotlight so that they can kind of handle that stuff, without being in being seen by media and such.
So, I mean,
it's just speculation, but things like that do happen. Not that it could be bad, but maybe there is just some sort of thing that he is caught up in that requires his attention, and he kind of can't be with the club right now.
There's also a fourth option, and we haven't even gotten to the third yet, but the fourth option could just be that he's like a vampire, and he just knows how to like hide in every photo. Like he's just like in the bathroom when the team photo happens. He's not feeling well, so he doesn't get the start at the 11.
You see pictures of John Cena. It's just like, oh, that poor woman's eating by herself.
Exactly. So I mean that could be a thing, but I don't think that's the case because there's too much media out there. There's too many things that highlight. But then the final one is he could be injured, and if he's injured, he's been injured since before Florida, which would mean like he got injured sometime between media day when we interviewed him, and he looked fine. Like I didn't see anything wrong with him, and after that, which was either the practice or it could be the scrimmage because the scrimmage did happen after that.
Possibly. There's
And
always.
do you remember we talked about the dust up, the quote unquote fight?
Ooh,
What if he
maybe.
got hurt? Like, what would cause benches to go after each other?
Really bad fouls.
Something that
Maybe
hurt
he
a
took
player.
a nasty 2-footed challenge from Dylan, and then
I don't I don't know. I like again. This is the tinfoil hat talking. So let's not get ourselves in a situation where we get in trouble later. But here's the facts. He's not playing. He hasn't played since media day. That was the last time we could confirm it. So it's either he's injured and the club hasn't announced it yet. He's in the middle of transfer discussions and the club's not using him because we're unloading him already. There's a legal situation, or well, he's a vampire and he just doesn't take photos. So we need to be prepared for that. I'm going to be looking. I mean, I'll ask the club, but I guarantee they're not. They're going to be like, yeah, we'll tell you. We'll tell you whatever we want to tell you when we want to tell you.
well,
So March 8th, when we
yeah.
have the opening, like that's when eyes are going to be on if he's there or not.
Yeah, even then, I think with the season starting in 2 weeks, we'll find out fairly soon.
I mean, it doesn't affect anything right now, and as you can see with the talent we have, we're still scoring, we're still successful. And again, it was I think the redundancy there of now Chico being here, like we're going to be okay either way. But
Yeah,
I would like to know what his status is.
yeah, it would be nice to know what's going on, but we have enough depth that even if say he for one reason is out for a little bit, for whatever the reason is, like I think we'll be okay. So we've got some events we kind of already talked about. But if you guys forgot, the first official unofficial fan meetup has been set for March 2nd at the Guild at 12 p.m. If you'd like to come out and meet some other fans of the club, get to know more about the support us group, or just enjoy a Saturday drinking with some adults and talking soccer, that's the place you're going to want to be. Sunday, March 3rd, the day after, RFC is hosting a community event at McBride's Irish Pub in Providence between 1 and 3. Chip will be there, as well as a chance to win a $50 RFC Team Store gift card. Nice. We've also heard a rumor that season ticket members can enjoy a free drink courtesy of the club.
So this is just an alcohol fueled
man,
weekend.
They're just, supporting my alcoholism. And I'm here for it.
Should we bring like fake like glasses and mustaches and then just come in?
Oh,
like,
just get back in line?
Yeah. They'll never know. They'll never know.
They're like, sir, you already have 4 drinks in your hand. I'm not that guy.
I mean, listen, I both of these things were not on my radar. I mean, well, actually, that's not true. The March 2nd one has been, but it's nice that the club is reaching out and extending something to the community. We'll definitely be at the Guild on Saturday. I don't know if Sunday will line up. I think we were going to go watch the Manchester Derby. That's more drinking.
That's this weekend.
Yeah, that's this weekend.
Wait, what? Oh, you're right. February has 29 days. We still haven't figured out how that pay works.
Yeah, so it's going to be drinking at the Guild, then drinking at the Moniker Brewing for the Derby, and then it's going to be drinking at the McBride's Irish Pub. Yeah.
Where am I?
These are problems. Good problems to have, though. And then I think we have one listener question.
Yeah, Tim here is saying, it seems that most New England soccer fans gravitate towards the Vermont Green for a USL 2 club. But until Portland joins the league, there's no natural USL 1 team to follow. With the upcoming USL 1 tournament this season, which team do you think RFC fans as a whole should support at this USL 1 level? Did you see the USL 1 tournament?
I did not.
So, I don't have all the details, remember, but basically they announced a USL 1 tournament that will play throughout the season. Basically, if they had their own sort of cup tournament, just to kind of give them some more meaningful matches And I think in the press release they even said maybe to kind of foster some kind of more rivalries and such. If I remember correctly, they separated the teams into
Like
groups.
regions, yeah.
Probably, yeah. So maybe it'll be something like a Champions League or whatever. You play through group stages. The best 2 teams or whatever will advance, and it seems cool.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a hard answer because one, I'm not actually investing as much time into the lower leagues just yet. I know Vermont Green because they have a sick kit. They have a really great mission statement. We actually are partnering with a photographer who covers that club, who will cover Rhode Island FC games. So it's difficult to say.
Isn't there a USL 1 team that Jermaine Jones bought and or runs?
I thought it was 2. I know. Well, he didn't buy. He's the coach of. It's like Central Fuego FC.
Okay, yeah, no, they're USL 1 team.
There are one. Okay.
So then,
That's
I'm a fan of Jermaine Jones.
Okay.
He's one of those bright spots, one of those few bright spots during those Jurgen Klinsmann eras.
Okay. I mean, I'll go with that too then as a de facto with you because I don't know if is Forward Madison, are they USL 1 or USL 2? I don't know.
USL 1.
Oh.
Ooh, another good option is there's what's that one team?
Everyone loves Omaha.
Richmond Kickers, right?
I mean, they used to be top of the walk.
Yeah, they've got some history. They came out and were like, "Yo, the USL Open Cup means a lot to us." So
I've spent so much time trying to drink in USL Championship. I just have not had.
You're just too hydrated.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing too, I subscribe that we will be in a pro rel state in the next year to 3 years because that's what's needed for this company as USL goes.
Not to go off on a tangent, but do you know, can a country have more than one Division 1?
Yes. Well, that's what the women's teams have.
Okay.
The NWSL and the new USL Super League are both Division 1 in the women's
game. So then at some point we'll expand upon this, but then the USL goal should just become a Division 1, get pro rel.
That's what they're trying to do, buddy.
And then just MLS can do whatever they want.
No one cares. You just cracked the code. But to the specifics of it, I actually also don't want to get acclimated to a USL 2 or a USL 1 team because this is not where I have an MLS team that I love and a USL team that I love. This is a very likelihood that if I start supporting a USL 1 team, they could be in the championship in 3 years, and then I have to freaking hate them. So I don't want to fall in love with something that I'd have to let go of later.
Yeah, maybe he just means in the very casual sense, in the way that I enjoy watching AC Milan from time to time. Am I a fan of them? I don't know. I don't watch all their games, but sometimes I do.
If the game's on, I'll watch it. I'll learn. If a USL 1 club is the one that's advancing in the Open Cup, I'll get behind him 100%. But we put so much work into this podcast. Even though people are probably you don't put that much work in this podcast. We put so much work in.
Maybe for us it's not reasonable, but maybe for RAFC fans who are hungry for more soccer.
Central Valley Fuego.
There
you go.
At least until maybe Maine gets theirs going, and
yeah,
maybe that'll be cool.
I was doing some research on Maine, ironically, the other day for USL 1. So I guess this is immediately a hypocrisy because I just said I don't pay attention. But someone's trying to think about, they asked us the steps to develop a podcast for a club that hasn't started yet. And they were looking at us as a blueprint. And they wanted to call themselves, they wanted to reference Maine as a part of the coverage. And I was like, I don't know how Portland, we get the privilege of being so tiny. We are a state. We don't have to deal with the city versus state mentality, but I think there's some cities out there that would not want to be roped in to the rest of their state. And since Maine is always joked as the South state of the North, no shade Maine, but let's also be honest. I don't know how Portland would receive a Maine attachment, so it'll be curious. But anyways, listen, we're out of time. We've once again ran so long.
Yeah.
One day we're gonna have to find out if listeners like this much or if they would rather us just to keep it to 45 minutes and walk. I hope not. But to kind of to kill off the pod here, we do have some upcoming guests. So we're gonna have Paul Byrne, the stadium manager, on the pod in a couple of weeks, as well as the New Mexico United podcast, Somos Mas. They'll be helping highlight how listeners can prepare and what to expect from our visiting away side. And then we're going to have a ticket giveaway for the home opener, as well as some exciting special merch giveaways, including an RIFC kit in the weeks to come. So stay glued to our social media to participate and earn yourself a free kit. Jason, get us out of here.
Yep. Speaking of social media, you guys can catch us on Twitter, Threads, and TikTok at RAFC Podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor, and there's that website, www.raisinganchorpodcast.com.
Anchors up.
Anchors up.